Home. Connor wonders how he can call the place he lives home when he's about to be evicted. Not just from the place he sleeps, but from the hearts of those who are supposed to love him. His father sits in a chair watching the news as Connor enters. "Hi, Dad." His father points at some random carnage on the news. "Clappers again." "What did they hit this time?" "They blew up an Old Navy in the North Akron Mall." Said Connor. "You'd think they'd have better taste." "I don't find that funny," his dad said. Connor's parents don't know that Connor knows he's being unwound. He wasn't supposed to find out, but Connor has always been good at ferreting out secrets. 3 weeks ago, while looking for a stapler in his dad's home office, he found airplane tickets to the Bahamas. They were going on a family vacation over Thanksgiving. One problem, though. There were only 3 tickets. No ticket for him, just for his mother, his father, his younger brother. At first, he figured the ticket was somewhere else, but the more he thought about it, the more it seemed wrong. So Connor went looking a little deeper when his parents were out, and he found it. The Unwind order. It had been signed in old-fashioned triplicate. The white copy was already gone, off with the authorities. The yellow copy would accompany Connor to his end, and the pink would stay with his parents, as evidence of what they'd done. Perhaps they would frame it and hang it alongside his first-grade picture. The date on the order was the day before the Bahamas trip. He was going off to be unwound, and they were going on vacation to make themselves feel better about it. The unfairness of it had made Connor want to break something. It had made him want to break a lot of things, but he hadn't. For once, he had held his temper, and aside from a few fights in school that weren't his fault, he kept his emotions hidden. He kept what he knew to himself. Everyone knew that an unwind order was irreversible, so screaming and fighting wouldn't change a thing. Besides, he found a certain power in knowing his parents' secret. Now the blows he could deal them were so much more effective. Like the day he brought flowers home for his mother, and she cried for hours. Like the B+ he brought home on a science test. Best grade he ever got in science. He handed it to his father, who looked at it, the color draining from his face. "See, Dad, my grades are getting better by the day. I could even bring my science grade up to an A by the end of the semester." An hour later, his father was sitting in a chair, still clutching the test in his hand and staring blankly at the wall. Connor's motivation was simple. Make them suffer. Let them know for the rest of their lives what a horrible mistake they made. But there was no sweetness to this revenge, and now 3 weeks of rubbing it in had made him feel no better. In spite of himself, he's starting to feel bad for his parents, and he hates that he feels this way. "Did I miss dinner?" His father doesn't look away from the TV. "Your mother left a plate for you." Connor heads off toward the kitchen, but halfway there he hears, "Connor?" He turns to see his father looking at him. Not just looking, but staring. He's going to tell me now, Connor thinks. He's going to tell me they're unwinding me and then break down in tears, going on and on about how sorry he is about it all. If he does, Connor just might accept the apology. He might even forgive him, and then tell him that he doesn't plan to be here when the juvie cops come to take him away. But in the end, all his father says is, "Did you lock the door when you came in?" "I'll do it now." Connor locks the door, then goes to his room, no longer hungry for whatever it is his mother saved for him. So Connor, having discovered the papers his parents have signed that will send him to the harvest camp, papers that, since they've been signed, cannot be taken back for any reason, he decides to run away and take his chances on his own. If he can avoid being captured by the juvie cops until he finally turns 18, he will be able to avoid his unwinding. Not long into his journey, Connor has a showdown with some juvie cops. This showdown causes an accident in which he meets two other unwinds, Risa and Lev. Risa, a 16-year-old orphan girl who is going to be unwound because the orphanage she lives in can't afford to keep her anymore. She's been trained her whole life as a concert pianist, but she's not quite good enough for them to justify keeping her around. Lev is the other unwind, and he is different than Risa and Connor. Lev is just 13, and he comes from a religious family. Ever since he was born, he has been raised knowing that he is what is called a tithe. Someone who was born being told by his family that he was special and that he would be unwound as an offering to God. The trio are thrown together as outlaws, and they must try to survive without being caught. In their survival mode, they discover an unknown network of runaways, kids who are not only trying to survive the cops and avoid the cops, but people who would turn them in for a reward. When Risa and Connor enter a place called the graveyard, they find themselves not knowing whom to trust. And upon meeting a boy called Sci-Fi, Lev also finds out what really happens to those who end up getting apart from someone who was unwound. How did unwinding come to be? Will Risa, Connor, and Lev be able to avoid the cops and human traffickers to avoid being unwound? Can Risa and Connor trust the people they meet at the graveyard? What really happens to those people who receive a part of an unwound body? And what happens when you have been taken to a harvest camp and been selected to be unwound? Well, if you want to find out, you'll need to read Unwind by Neal Shusterman. This is probably my favorite book that I've read this summer after The Hunger Games. It's thrilling, it's mysterious, and you can't put it down. It keeps you reading and guessing until the very, very end. Go out, get it, read it, tell me about it on the blog, and I will see you next week. Bye.